Welcome, Rose. Thank you so much for availing yourself to come and speak to us today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're most welcome. Okay, Rose, would you like to just introduce yourself briefly?
Okay, my name is Rose Luke. I'm a doctor in the Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management. I do research mainly at the university, but I do, of course, lecture as well. And, of course, a big part of my job is looking after students. So I've been at the university for about 8 years now and still having fun.
Great. Thanks so much for that intro, Rose. Can you quickly explain to us what transport economics is about?
Well, if I had to give you the official version, I would say to you that when it's a branch of economics that looks after transport specifically. So we kind of look at how resources are allocated and so on. But let me put it in a simpler way. If you think about life, you need transport for absolutely everything. The fact that we're here today, the fact that we're wearing clothes, eating food, that's all here because of transport, and that's what we do in transport economics.
All right. And the popular institutions, or where can one study transport economics?
You know, it's a rare thing in South Africa, actually. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's really only 4 institutions that offer it. You can look at, of course, UJ, but Stellenbosch as well, Northwest University and UNISA. There's, of course, plenty of universities that offer our sister subject, logistics management, but for transport economics, there are only a few of us.
All right. And the required subjects to study this qualification?
Well, typically you'd need a fairly good matric, but I'd say that you must be proficient in English, and we look for maths as well, and it depends at which level you want to study. If you want to study at diploma level, your vocational training, then of course maths literacy is fine. You want to go into degrees, more academic pursuits, then of course you must look at proper maths.
Okay, and for someone considering this particular career path, what would you say are the important skills and attributes that person would require?
Well, I think again it depends, but for me you must work hard. That's the first thing. But of course, we're looking at other things like you must be able to communicate well. We would very much like to have students that are able to see the big picture, because you must remember in transport, when you're looking at things like, for example, building the Gautrain, you're looking at a long-term project. So you must be able to look at it and see what are the effects in the long term on the economy. Is it actually worth spending that money? Is it not worth spending that money? So ability to see the big picture is a very big skill for us. And then, of course, thinking outside the box.
And what other career opportunities can one venture out into after studying transport economics as an undergrad degree?
Okay, now this one you must, it's a very, very wide answer that I've got for you. And it's simply because think about transport, it's absolutely everywhere. So now I can start with rail, going to Transnet. There you become involved in, think about those massive trains crisscrossing the country, exporting coal, etc., iron ore to the rest of the world, bringing in goods. So I'll start with rail, but we can of course look at sea transport, shipping, ports, any of those aspects, air transport, SAA, AXA, Kalula, all of those guys. Of course, road, we need to look at public transport, buses, how people get around, even our minibus taxis, we must look at those. And of course, freight. Think about Woolworths or Pick and Pay. Everybody needs transport. There's, of course, the other side of it where you could look at government. We're in desperate need of people who really can see the big picture and make policies and enforce policies. And of course, on a local level, people who can plan those kind of aspects. And of course, you always get the consulting side as well.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Rose. And from your experience as a lecturer, would you say transport economics students have an understanding of what they would do after completing this qualification? Or do they just, study it because it might be the only available option? Or, they do have a passion but don't exactly know how they could venture forth?
I think one of the biggest strengths that we can give our students at the end of the day is the ability to see the big picture and the ability to make decisions when they get into the big wide world. And what we try and do at a transport economics level is teach students how to make decisions in the short term, which would really be something as simple as managing a truck, all the way to the bigger picture of looking after transport in the entire country. And we must be able to see how those two fit together. If you can't manage the truck, you must think that you will not have a good impact on the economy. So we like to think that at the end of it, our students can see that big picture. And of course, for companies out there, what are they looking for? People who can see that bigger picture. Those kind of soft skills where students are really able to, they may not have every single detail, but they can fit in once they get there, and they can learn the detail because they understand the bigger picture. So they can learn the detail on the job.
And just some common misconceptions that people have about this qualification. Would you just like to brief us on that?
I think one of the biggest things is the word economics puts people off. So instantly they start thinking, well, that must be maths. And of course it isn't. We are
and lots of graphs.
And graphs, yes. Maths and demand curves.
Yes.
Of course there are people that look at that, but we are also looking at people who can manage the transport function.
Thank you. And any advice that you would give someone who's interested in studying transport economics?
I think, put your head down and study, but you will not regret it because the opportunities in the area are absolutely limitless. I myself, before I started lecturing, I worked in the fashion industry for a long time because really, how do you get your clothes into the shops? I've of course also worked in shipping and consulting, so I can really say that I've worked in many, many different countries. I can say that this degree has taken me to a lot of places.
Are there any growth opportunities? Are there a lot of opportunities? You've just covered that. I think you said it's limitless for someone that wants to do transport economics and going forth in their career.
Yeah, very much so. If you think about almost every country they need, or every company they need transport economists. They need people to sort out their transport because, of course, if you can't get, for example, your goods into stores at a reasonable price, they will become too expensive. So this is where transport plays a major role. And I can honestly tell you that our students don't struggle to get jobs.
On that issue of employment, would you just highlight some companies in South Africa that would actually employ transport economics graduates?
Well, I think I've mentioned earlier Transnet. That's obviously a big employer for our students, but you can certainly look at SAA, Kalula, BA Com Air, those kind of companies, government. At national level, provincial level, local level, and then of course your Woolworths, Pick and Pay, Checkers, and of course on the banking side as well, we can look at, of course, people must finance vehicles. So they require transport economists there, so you definitely need that. And then I think some of the biggest trucking companies, Imperial Logistics, Barlow World Logistics, and then of course lastly the consultancy side again.
So there's a wide variety of companies that would take on our graduates.
Yeah, and I think it's really dependent on what interests the students. If fashion is your interest, then Edgar's would be looking for you.
Target those companies, yes.
If Airways are your interest, SAA, Kalula, those guys will be looking for you. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. And what sort of salary would one be expecting once they complete an undergrad in transport economics?
I think, again, it varies. It depends where you go. We know that when you start off on a graduate training program, for example, they like to keep the salaries quite low to start with. But what we also find is that it increases very quickly. So within 3 months, should you have successfully completed the first 3 months, it will increase quickly. So I would say we're looking in the area of about, let's say, 7,000 or 8,000 to 15,000 to start with. So quite a wide range and really dependent on where you are placed.
Okay. That's interesting. Thank you so much, Rose. Thank you for coming in today, and it was very informative.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here.
You're most welcome.